welcome to another episode of Analog Insights. In today's episode, my friend Greg and I review the Minolta Hi-Matic 7SII, which is a 35mm fixed lens rangefinder from 1977 and is considered one of the finest Minolta rangefinders from that era. It is known for its relatively compact size, lightweight, and incredible optical performance. We took the camera out around Christmas in Würzburg, so shooting some Christmas market scenes with Agfa Precisia 100. And as always, we would like to share our findings and personal impressions of this camera. So let's dive in there. The Minolta Hi-Matic 7SII stands on a long tradition of Minolta Hi-Matic cameras that started in 1962 and ended with the rather plasticky Hi-Matic GF in 1984. This camera here is really considered one of the pinnacles in that rangefinder series created by Minolta. Interestingly, historically, is that in the 1970s, all major manufacturers had such a 35mm rangefinder in their lineup. So for instance, Olympus had the 35 RD, RC, and SP in their lineup, and one of which we had already reviewed here on the channel before. And when you look at Canon, for instance, they had the Canonet QL17, which is also comparable. And all these cameras have in common a 40mm f1.7 lens, and these lenses were usually pretty good. And the cameras only differ with respect to the build quality, overall handling, and to some extent also the shutter sound and shutter mechanics. So it all comes down to personal preference, but if you're really in the market for one of these 40mm lens rangefinder cameras, then it might make sense to take a closer look at the others as well. Looking at the Hi-Matic 7SII, it's important to note that there are two different versions of the camera, one in black and one in chrome. The chrome version usually costs around 200 euros on the second-hand market, and the black version is slightly more expensive with around 50 to 60 euros more in general. What is really special about the camera is its shutter priority mode, so an automatic mode. So it comes with that automatic mode, but also can be used manually. And that automatic mode in combination with its near silent shutter and rangefinder design makes it well suited for street photography. So if you're into that and don't want to break the bank and go for a Leica, then this camera might be really interesting to you as well. The Minolta Hi-Matic 7SII comes with a 40mm f1.7 lens with 6 elements in 4 groups. The lens is pretty sharp and offers excellent contrast, and not only is the bokeh really pleasant, but once stopped down, the sharpness increases significantly, and that is quite surprising for a lens of such a compact form factor, and you can really see the Minolta rocker quality here in this lens design. Due to the minimum focusing distance of only 3 feet or 90 centimeters, I would personally recommend to only use it for street photography and environmental portraits, because you cannot really do close-up portraits here. The nearly silent copal leaf shutter is also worth mentioning, and it supports shutter speeds from 1/8 of a second all the way up to 1/500 of a second plus a bulb mode. And as it is a leaf shutter, it naturally flash things across the entire range of shutter speeds, which is really convenient. So you can even use full flash, for instance, during daylight situation during a daylight situation at 1/500th of a second. Important to mention, as this camera has not only come with a manual exposure mode but also a automatic mode, is that there is a built-in light meter with a CDS cell, and that is conveniently placed in such a way so that you can screw a 49mm filter on top of that lens, for instance an orange filter, and it would still be take that filter into consideration when metering the light. The ISO setting is located here at the bottom of the lens and around the lens, as well as most of the other settings, and it ranges from ISO 25 to 800. The mechanical nature of the shutter means that the batteries can basically die on you, and you can still operate and use the camera in the manual mode. And the aperture settings are also located around the lens here, as you can see, and they range from f1.7 to f16. On the front of the camera there is a self-timer lever which releases after a 10-second delay. The viewfinder is a little bit dim and relatively small, unfortunately, and as you have that automatic exposure lock, when you half press down the shutter release, you get also an indication inside the viewfinder in the automatic mode only of what the automatically selected aperture would be. So here on the right side of the viewfinder you always get the indication of which aperture the camera would select in that automatic mode. Especially with the widest apertures, it's sometimes hard to see depending on the shooting situation, and also in part because you can see a portion of the lens in the viewfinder here on the lower right corner. The film advance feels really solid and smooth. The advance lever comes with a plastic tip and is angled in a really comfortable way, in my opinion. And if we look at the frame counter, in my opinion, it's really easy to read, and overall you have a very clean top of the camera, top plate. And also if you look at the interior, the film bay and the take-up spool and also the rewind crank on top are all well built, and it really feels solid to operate the camera. So overall, really high build quality and exceptional lens, and really nice controls and the built-in light meter that even supports filters. So what are our personal impressions? Overall, the camera is a lot of fun to use, and personally I consider it a great option if you're in the market for a rangefinder camera and don't really want to break the bank. So if you're not really looking for something bigger and more versatile like a Leica M camera, then this Minolta is definitely a great option. I particularly like the quiet shutter sound and also the smooth film advance and overall compact size. For me, it's really quick and easy to use and lets me shoot with a lot of discretion. And I could see myself using it quite a lot for black and white street photography with a yellow filter, for instance, and also for taking it out when going out with friends to a museum, for instance, or at a jazz concert where I would want to shoot some great images, but nevertheless don't disturb anybody with the sound of my camera. Also the wide aperture of f1.7 makes it quite versatile also for darker situations. The only downside here in my opinion is that the ISO setting maxes out at 800, so if you're really pushing your film to 3200 for instance, you're bound to using the manual mode instead and cannot use the automatic mode anymore. But that is okay, because then of course you would just open that aperture and use maybe 1/60th of a second and you're good to go. It is also important to point out that there is no shutter lock, so while it does indicate, okay, your frame would be overexposed or underexposed, it does not prevent you from taking that shot. So you can, if you're not careful, definitely over or underexpose your shots with that camera. Please also note, and that is really important, the built-in light meter was originally designed for the 1.35 volt mercury batteries, which are not available anymore. And today you can either use a 1.4 or 1.5 volt alternative battery adapters for the LR44 batteries, or the so-called wine cells, which are also an alternative, but expect some overexposure, as these light meters tend to become a bit inconsistent over time. So at least based on the reviews I've read, many people reported that they have always a slight overexposure with this particular light meter, because it just works differently over time. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review of the Minolta Hi-Matic 7SII, a beautiful, compact, late 1970s rangefinder. If you did, please remember to like this video and maybe even share it with your friends. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to our channel. Jules, Greg, and I really appreciate each and every subscriber coming our way. So thanks for watching. I hope to see you soon. Bye.